We're recording. You're listening to the Tune Up and Jam podcast. Ready? Go.
Tune Up and Jam, episode 32. All right.
Magic Johnson.
Tune Up and Jam.
Hello and Sata Sri Akala. Don't ask me to say that again because it's Punjabi for good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You even said the accent.
I don't know. I don't know if that's an accent or.
I didn't mean to.
Yeah, well, here we are back again. Guess what? We thought the last episode was the last of 2017, but we're just going to throw another quick one here to really end the year with something more.
With a bang.
Well, it depends on when you release it, though.
Yeah. 2017.
You're going to make it happen. Now that you said that, you're committed.
It's got to be.
committed.
You're committed,
Yeah.
dude.
We're in.
It's coming
Yeah.
in. Well,
Hey.
this one's going to come in after Christmas, before the New Year.
Oh,
That's when this one's going to come in.
No, it's not.
No?
Okay, I guess I'm committed.
Now
to
you're
it.
committed to that.
Thanks. I
Because
was
you got
on
another one
vacation,
coming
but
in.
thanks.
Well, too bad. You committed yourself. I guess you could always go back and re-edit, but, that's up to you.
Yeah, hey, it's been a while. How have you guys been?
We got Chris back for another one. We might as well get the most out of him when we
It's
can.
going good. It's going good.
So, I had something. Give me your opinion on this. If you're working with somebody, you need some musicians, right? Would you prefer somebody to play with who had good time or good feel? If you get to pick one, would it be
Don't they go together?
good time or good feel?
Yeah, wait a second.
They kind of go together.
Not necessarily.
I think they go together.
Yeah, I
No,
think
not
that was
necessarily.
kind of a weird question, but
I would say like good chops or good feel / time.
right. That's a better question.
Look at me just improving all over.
No. Because to me, the chops would be the feel.
No.
I don't think
no.
the chops are the feel.
In fact, there's people who focus on the chops too much that they lack feeling.
And they lack
it sounds
time.
too technical.
And they lack time.
Not necessarily.
There's plenty of people who work on chops and have crappy time.
Then they don't have the chops.
Yeah. No
Chops.
chops.
Having the chops is about being, at least my interpretation, I'll put it that way, is about being technically correct in time or, execution, but it doesn't necessarily have feel. It could. There are a lot of great players out there who are both amazing, have amazing chops and have great feeling, but they're not always together. There's some people who play with a lot of feeling who can't, play in tune or,
Okay.
Or just don't have these amazing chops. That,
Yeah,
like,
and there's definitely the opposite. Amazing technicians, I'll call them. They're technicians, but artists, I don't know.
Okay, so however you want to pose the question.
How so what
I think
you say chops or feel?
everybody. I think anybody would say feel.
Yeah.
And a sense of timing, but that's a maturity thing too.
Yeah.
That's a maturity thing that I think every musician probably struggles with too. Because when you learn a cool
The
chop,
timing
no,
or the feel?
I think
Whatever you
the chops.
The chops.
I mean, I think because when you get some chops, it's like any new thing. You're like, ooh, I want to bust this out as much as I can, and I want to show people that I'm
good.
I'm good,
And I got better.
and I got yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of laying in the groove, that's when like a cat is mature, is when they got that, they can bust out ridiculous solos and crazy stuff, but they can also just lay in it and serve the song.
Serve the music.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you, can you give an example of what you're talking about? Because I know we kind of flipped it on you. We're like, no, that's, here's the other question. But what about the way you're saying it? Timing versus feel. What's the difference?
Well, when I'm talking about the feel, I'm talking about something like what you're talking about a little bit. Not being overly choppy, using dynamics properly. Playing what the song needs, but not necessarily, you might speed up or slow down.
Yeah, but tempo is another. Like
That's
don't
what I
even
mean.
think
Good
of,
time.
I don't even think
Timing
of
is-
time
to
as
me is tempo.
necessarily tempo.
Okay, so good
Because-
tempo.
Because I would rather have somebody who has good feel and is funky, but doesn't have great tempo.
Okay,
Like they're going to speed
that's-
up or slow
okay,
down.
so that's how I meant it.
Okay.
That question to be then. So if you want to talk about it as tempo,
Okay, I would say feel over tempo, personally.
okay.
To me, it's always about feel. Whatever you throw against feeling will win. Because I don't know, to me, it's at least, in my view, this art of music, feeling trumps it all. If the feeling's right, then what else could trump that?
Well, tempo. Because if you've ever been, you play with somebody who rushes the tempo or you got something that needs to be. I mean, tempo is part of the feel in a way too. you know?
I guess that's what
True.
that's
You
why
know,
it confused me, because I kind of saw that as, because to me the feeling is it could be a combination, or the choice of notes. It's a combination of different things: choice of notes, the phrasing of those notes, right? And the phrasing to me goes into the timing. That's how I've viewed it.
Mhm.
So
Dynamics.
yeah, the dynamics, all that together, to me makes feeling. So
See-
if somebody is,
Okay, let's get specific. A drummer. Would you want a drummer who has kind of
Feel.
perfect time?
No. As a matter of fact, I think, there's a lot of things. I was watching a thing on Led Zeppelin the other night, and they were talking about Stairway to Heaven and the fact that it speeds up quite a bit from the beginning of Stairway to Heaven to the end. And I know it's such a cliche song now. It's a guitar song and everything else, but it's an amazing song, right? I mean, I think that it's a great song. And it speeds up quite a bit. And I think there's a lot of musical pieces that have changing tempo. Not necessarily wildly changing tempo where you're racing away or something like that. But I think the racing away hurts because if it's hurting the feel. Like it's not necessarily tied together. Varying tempo is only a bad thing if it hurts the feel, to me personally. When you talk about time, like I think about how you play notes. Do you play them right on the front of the beat? Do you play them right on the beat? Do you play at the back of the beat?
see,
You
that
know,
all
as a
contributes
drummer,
to your feel,
Absolutely.
right? So to me, and I mean, I don't want to. In this case, I don't want to name names, but there's a very well-known drummer that everybody raves about. Technically, he's amazing, but I've always felt that it was just that. It was too technical, and it felt lifeless.
Like robotic?
Robotic, yeah. It felt like, okay, you can basically program a machine and it'll do all this stuff, but there's the human element of the different dynamics, the timing, and everything it's too stiff for me. So I would absolutely not take the perfect timing and chops over the feel. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, we're kind of we're throwing this out here, and it's like you're kind of like pick your poison, right? Because you're going to be without one. Ideally, you want both. Ideally, you want everything. But in the cases where you're lacking, I think emotionally, you can connect with feeling more so than having it technically correct.
Okay,
well,
how about
I'll tell
this?
you the other thing.
Okay, go ahead.
And just real quick, you can always improve time. You can't necessarily. Some people maybe just don't have the tempo. Let's say, if you want to call it tempo, you can always work on that. If you find somebody that you connect with and has got the great feel,
Yeah.
their tempo kind of sucks. You can correct that. That can be worked on. You know what I mean? I don't know how easy it is to do vice versa or the other way around.
I tend to agree with that.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody can just put on a metronome and start playing with it.
Yeah.
You're gonna get
You
better.
just need to woodshed more, and yeah.
Which drives me a little like I played with a drummer once who literally had a beats per minute counter on his kick drum,
Oh.
and it's like set it like this is the beats per minute for this song, this is the beats per minute for this song, and regardless of what the band was doing and how it felt, he would stay locked on that metronome. And I thought it was detrimental to the feel at times.
Yeah.
You know, where you could feel the whole band,
Yeah.
the tension of it, and like, oh, we need to go up, or we need to go down, or we need to go someplace
You just
else.
wanted to go over and turn off that.
which drove me. You know, there was a situation where we played with a guy who was very much into tempo and a steady tempo through the whole thing, and I thought that the decisions the band makes as a whole, like I think sometimes a drummer takes too much heat for tempo when it's more of a collective.
Yeah.
You know, it's a collective. It's kind of like like he might be in the engine of the train, but you ain't stopping all them cars
No.
if none of them put the brakes
No,
on.
and I'm
You know
glad
what
you
I'm
brought
saying?
that up, because that's a very common mistake I think that a lot of people in bands make, is that, well, as long as the drummer has the tempo, then we're fine. Well, that's not true. You need to be able to play with tempo as well. You know what I mean?
I
if your
honestly-
tempo sucks and I'm playing on a certain whatever, you're rushing something and we're not together, we're not locked.
Right.
That's terrible. That sounds like crap.
I honestly think in a lot of pieces of music, and it depends on what kind of songs you're playing, but I think sometimes, and maybe this is just me because I'm super egocentric about everything, I actually think that the bass player in most rock music drives the tempo maybe even more than the drummer. Because I think the drummer the drummer and the bass player are always kind of listening and playing off each other. Well, if the bass player starts getting on top, because I've done that, I've been that dude pushing the thing, and it's hard. It's almost impossible for a drummer to not respond and move forward to that.
I've always felt the bass player is like the glue to everything.
Well, the most important person in the band is the bass player. I mean,
Well, because to oversimplify it, you have the beat of the drums, right? Then you have the texture.
Did you have to oversimplify because you're talking to a bass player, or what?
No,
you had
no.
to make that known.
No, you didn't know I was looking at you when I said that. You didn't notice that. Right? But I mean,
I
okay,
stand
so you have
bam, bam,
Bam,
bam,
bam.
bam.
that's what it is. It's the beat there, and then you have the harmony and the textures of the melodic, the upper range melodic instruments. But the bass kind of has that rhythmic drive, yet comes in with the harmony of everything else, and it puts everything together. That's how I've felt about it. Because especially when you hear songs and the intro is only drums or only drums and guitar, right? All right, we're getting somewhere, but it doesn't really.
Song
kick
doesn't
in.
start until the bass comes
The
in.
song doesn't truly start until the bass comes.
There was a great interview with Carol Kay, and she recorded on all the records that you never knew she recorded on.
For
with
those
the
who don't
Beach
know, part of the
Boys.
Wrecking Crew.
Yeah. LA session bass player and really like a groundbreaking female musician, excellent guitar player. But she was talking about working with Sonny and Cher, and she went into a session for The Beat Goes On, and probably almost everybody's familiar with that song, which starts with bass and drums basically. And they had wrote it basically for the drums to play the drums that are played on the record, but the bass to basically just the whole song stays on one note, the whole song, right? And so they had the bass just staying on one note. And she said she put in, the doom 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 doom, and that feel completely changes. And now that's the iconic thing in that song to me, is that bass line, and how it moves and how it's not necessarily a tempo issue, but getting to the feel issue. When I think of I Want You Back by the Jackson 5, and like can you imagine that song with a different bass line? Like you could imagine it with almost any different part of that. But if you take that bass line out of it, it's a completely different song.
Well, that's not that song anymore.
No.
That song is the bass line.
That song is
It's
the bass line.
Yeah. Or like Stand By Me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
It doesn't have to be hard.
No.
It's just how it's played and where it's at. So I would agree with you. I'd like to blame the drummer for pretty much anything that goes wrong at a gig.
And you have.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. I give the sour look like, what are you doing? When I screw up, I give the drummer.
And the reason that works is because most people who are non-musicians who are out there watching, they just automatically assume, yeah, the drummer is not really. What does he know? You know.
Yeah.
So if the rest of the band's looking at the drummer, then everybody watching goes, "Yeah, it must have been a drummer." Yeah.
And I don't know if you know
he's going to
this.
get his ass kicked after this gig. We should watch.
But there's an unwritten rule where all the everybody else on stage has a kind of this unspoken agreement when there's any kind of fuck up. You just look at the drummer.
Yeah.
Everybody look at the drummer collectively.
Right,
On the
and that's
same-
what I
Could be
mean.
a smile,
That's
a
what I mean.
smirk.
Yeah.
Did you catch that? I just screwed up.
The moron again. Yeah. But people in the audience buy it too. You know.
Yeah.
So,
But
you know,
here,
we're just
but going back to the original question.
Well,
though,
it comes back to that old saying, you know, women who are hangers on to musicians are called groupies, and men who are hangers on to musicians are called drummers.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I'm so honored.
there you go.
I'm so honored to be part of your hanging on.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Thank you, guys.
I thought your question was pretty simple to answer, though. It was just about feel.
I'm sorry,
What?
Francis.
No.
You got anything more
Sorry
complex,
to give
drummer
you-
boy?
Doing my best here.
You know what I mean, or do you?
I'll
I'm
figure
just
it out
saying.
by tomorrow.
I'm saying
Can I get
it
a
wasn't.
take-home test here?
I'm saying it didn't feel like it doesn't feel like a struggle to pick a side.
Well, do you think it depends on the style of music? Because I bet you if if we had some jazz players in here, specifically talking
Are you
about a
speaking for
drummer.
all the-
No, specifically talking as a drummer and having played jazz, I would bet that a lot of them would say we want somebody who has good tempo. We care about his chops as much as his tempo. But that would be specifically only talking about jazz.
Well, I think in any of jazz or classical music, something in which you're following often a prescribed path for the music, whether it's telling you you're not speeding up unless on the sheet music it says rapido or whatever it is for speed up. What is it? What is
Allegro, rapid, yeah. It could be,
so whenever
Allegro.
it says something like that, that's when you speed up. And it's funny coming from my perspective of never playing in the high school jazz band or the concert band or the marching band and not going to music school, and always being a kind of fly by the seat of my pants and like, oh yeah, just you kind of find it or you play it by ear. I've also played with those people, through a church or through a musical or a concert or something, and they get very irritated when you're playing by feel and not exactly what is written on that page. So when it says on the page 120 beats per minute, they're expecting you to play start to finish 120 beats per minute. And you're right. I think style of music plays into that big.
and individual musicians, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I go back to when I was in a jazz ensemble, and it's kind of like the movie Whiplash. It brought back some memories.
Did you have a chair thrown at you?
I didn't quite have that, but I did have my instructor would stop. So this is a fairly large jazz ensemble, big band. You got your horn section. You got the saxes, the trumpets, the clarinets, and all of them, and they're up in front. And the rhythm sections were all behind everybody in our practice room. Bass, piano, drums, sitting back there. And he's up front, and he would stop when I'd be playing and just yell at me for my time. You got you got bad time back there, your tempo sucks, and he would make me strap on headphones and play a click track in my headphones, and I would just have to sit there and play a swing beat to the click track while the whole entire band watched me. And they were all like turned in their seat, arm up on the back of the chair,
judging eyes.
just sitting there grin at me like, look at this shitty drummer back there. He can't, and with their little smirks on their faces with their saxophones and
Right. There's 14 people in the saxophone section.
Yeah.
Like if they make a little bit of, who knows who does it?
Yeah. But they're all watching me play the swing beat to a tempo of 115 or whatever, you know what I mean? And then he would raise it up to 135 or whatever, and I had to follow along with that in front of everybody. Yeah, it's pretty humiliating.
That's funny because I think about and you were with me in a circumstance a couple years ago in a recording studio where a producer basically said like, hey, you know what you just played? And I was like, yeah, like thinking that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't do that. Don't do any of that. Do this.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of playing a church gig with written out music. And I just looked at the charts and doing the very first run through of the song and playing it. And we got done with the song and the conductor and the piano player kind of looked at me and I looked at them like, yeah, that's pretty bad, right? That was good. And they're like, can you just play what's written on the page? And I'm like, oh, I thought it would make it a little, funky or a little feel. And they're like, just play what's on. They never asked me to come back and sit in for that particular gig.
That is true. I mean, people, we generally can play really free with each other. We can read off each other really well, and we all kind of work well together like that and play. But there are people out there that, I've been in those bands where it's sheet music and it's just it's just and any deviations from that is just kind of like what are you doing? How dare you?
It all depends on the musical director, right? Like what they're after.
Well, and their abilities, because there are people who are really, really good readers, and you and I have played, Francis, with a violinist who is an excellent. He plays in a symphony orchestra. He's an excellent reader, but ask him to play. Hey, you want to throw out some little blues tune and in G?
Yeah,
can't do it. Can't deviate whatsoever from a page. So it's. It's a comfort thing for them too, and it's just like if you're playing.
Oh, it's the math to me. That's the part of the brain that's that math related thing where it's like I can follow the equation, but I can't set it up.
You get it to your own way though.
Yeah, I can't do it my own way. I got to follow the equation.
Just so you know, I was told a similar thing in one of these one of the gigs where I did bass. I was attempting to sight read some bass parts and. This part that I haven't really reviewed, and it seemed, complicated to do on the fly since I don't do this all the time. And I just improvised, a line that fit harmonically, and everything fit. But he stopped. The musical director stopped and goes, "What do you got written there?" Well, and it turned out because he was so familiar with the music, he wanted to hear certain phrases, as is, or as written, I should say. He was looking to hear for those phrases as cues, musical cues.
Yeah.
So when I'm often, doing my own thing and thinking, oh, this fits, he's like, can you just play the part at least, something familiar so that I can, know it sounds right.
Did all of the ensemble with the director and being able to read, like I'm having seen some of the things that people who don't read have, like what that situation I've been there before, so none of that kind of phases me whatsoever. But when that happened to you, I was like, oh man, I could see. I could see what was going on in your head. You know what I mean?
There's the two people hanging out, right? And we all know the two people on my shoulder. And one of them's like, this is a really good learning experience. And you should really take this in and take this constructively. And then the other part of me is like, I'll kill you, motherfucker. You want to take this thing and play it? You go ahead and do it, man. I'm going to watch the Lions. I'm going to hang out.
And there was the line between those two characters was about as razor thin as it gets, man. Like
They were jumping across
Oh,
sides,
yeah,
right? They were
yeah.
Everything stopped and everybody kind of looked at me, and especially at this point, nobody really knew me except for Rich.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody else really even knew me. They just know, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a pretty large, person in the normal sphere of people, and so there's always that thought that he might go crazy and just kill this dude and go crazy. But I did not. My maturity, and I really do feel that way. Like I honestly do feel that way. It's hard. It's embarrassing. You always want to be like, have somebody come and go, man, that was awesome. What you did there was great. But you don't get any better by people going, that was great.
Yeah.
You get better by people who you respect, and your friends and people that you go in, and somebody, I didn't really know this person at all, but I respected him from everything that I'd heard from other people. So I was like, I'm going to listen. And when I look at it now, and at the time it was one thing, and you've played the bass lines, they're not difficult bass lines, but the feel in my head, I was feeling something completely different. And one song in particular took me.
I know what song you're talking about.
So long, because we had practiced it a few times, and I'd played it one way with one feel, and that's kind of how. And it took somebody to say, like, why are you doing these things? It should be right on. And I don't tend to do that, and it was a good reminder. And now when I get to that song and we play it in a set and stuff, now I've been able to put that together and then free it up with other things, but stay with that kind of thing on there. And if you just shut it off and say get defensive and protective, then you don't grow. So
okay, with all that said, though, personally, I like the way I would lean towards the way you would naturally play it.
yeah. Well,
That's just me, though.
It's interesting now because I think now for that particular thing, and unfortunately, that's not on the studio recording.
Yeah.
But I think now, like playing it out, there's somewhat of a mix in there, and you feel it. And the nice thing about when you play with you or I play with Rich, because we're so familiar with each other. Because sometimes I'm goofy too, and I just forget and just go back. And Rich kind of just follows along, goes like, he forgot it. So I'll go back.
Yeah.
Or he'll go.
That's the field of song tonight.
He'll go, or he'll literally start just going like, and he'll just hit his kick, and I'll be like, oh, that's right. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. Is Rich is lighting this path along like breadcrumbs, like follow it, you idiot. And then I'll come back to it. His brain is more capable of remembering than mine, apparently.
Well,
That's funny.
yeah, but
But so feel, right? See, feel.
Feel.
It goes back to feel.
Feel.
but that's what that all was too. He was coming from a point of feel too.
Yeah.
He wasn't feeling what you were feeling.
Right.
But I mean, that's
Well, that's music, that's art, and it's all subjective. See,
Completely.
that's really the bottom line. So what all the things that we're saying, you got people out there who are thinking, no, I need the opposite. And fair enough.
Let's put it this way, though. There have been times when, you've played with somebody who comes in with a piece of music or something, and they have everything worked like it's going to go like this, then this, and this, and this. And then as an individual artist, you or me might go, oh, man, wouldn't this be cool? And it makes it better. And I think that one reason that we stay together is because we're all receptive to each other's ideas and creativity and everything else. And we're able to go, hey, I think we should do this. And yeah, me too. And go, okay, I wasn't really feeling that, but yeah, let's try it. Let's do it.
We're open. Because I remember there are a couple of times when you'd bring up an idea and we're working out some original idea. And then I would say, well, what did you expect to hear? And you'd be like, well, what do you got?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then going from there. And I think that there's a point where you can shut yourself off and it doesn't serve the music, and it certainly doesn't serve the overall collaborative, everybody kind of getting off on the artistic thing. If somebody's just like, no, this is how it goes. This is how we're doing it. So,
but there is a benefit to some outside ear
For
just
sure.
coming in and saying, you know what, it doesn't work. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
that's what I'm
and-
saying. I
yeah.
think that's really important. So
Yeah.
you can't get too locked into like, no, this is how I do this, and this is how I do that.
That's what the Metallica producer Bob Rock said, or basically when he was producing their the Black album,
Mm-hmm.
which it's one of their most commercially successful albums. But
One
he,
of them
Is there-
was,
is
I mean,
their
that's-
most commercially successful. But he was saying, or I think James was saying something about, he came in here and he goes, nah, there's too much E.
Yeah.
You're playing on E too much, and it's just.
And James is like, fuck you.
At the
First,
time, I
yeah.
mean, Metallica's attitude, and it's like they do what they want, and James wrote the songs, and that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And you got this guy coming in there like, there's too much E,
Yeah.
playing too much, and and that's where it's like you need to be able to break out of that comfort zone, but it does take somebody that you can trust. You got to be willing to trust them to say, all right, maybe I'm not feeling it, but let's just go with that and let's see how it turns out. There has to be that willingness there.
Yeah, I think you always have to at least try.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's try it like this, and let's see what do we think collectively.
Yeah.
And if everybody's thinking like I'm feeling, we're feeling you doing it like this, even if you're not, figure out how to make it feel like that, because I think it's all about the collective. It's not, it's all. Otherwise, be a solo musician.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unless you've reached that point where you're like Prince or James Brown, then tell people what they're gonna do, But then you got to pay them,
And then you find them and
Yeah, exactly.
And it-
Fire them and you get somebody else.
yeah.
And in the end, it's about to me, it goes back to what you said too. Serve the song, whatever it is. If you've got some ego shining part, great. If you don't, great. If it serves the song, it serves the song. That's what should be the priority.
Right.
So.
But I think in that particular situation with you, I think the bigger issue was his delivery of how he said it to you.
Yeah, it
wasn't so much that, hey, why don't you try this instead? It was more like, don't do that.
Yeah,
Almost like what you played was terrible.
Yeah.
And if I hear it again, I'm throwing you out of here. Like it was like an attack.
There was
you know?
there
is something to how you
Oh,
approach.
yeah.
there
you know,
was
saying
a
it to
point,
somebody.
Francis, where
Really?
seriously, like we'd do it and like he'd stop it and then he would just look at me and like,
Yeah, he'd be like,
don't do that. And he'd go back and I'm like, I'll try it again, do it. And there was, I mean, that's difficult for anybody who has an ego or anything else. And I'm
Hey, look,
tremendously confident,
If
but
you're an artist, you're gonna have some.
you're gonna
some
get
ego.
kicked in the junk, man. You're gonna get a punch to the gut, and it's gonna change your world around. You got to be able to deal with that and not. Well, I'm taking my ball and going home, which I almost did like 3 or 4 times.
It's funny though, because there's times when I'd be in a studio situation where I was asked to, okay, do this, all right, or play this a certain way, like a phrasing. Technically, it's not or wasn't difficult to generally speaking, it wasn't difficult to execute. But for some reason, that particular, the timing and that phrasing was I was struggling with it, right? And I don't know why. Then I go home, and it's like, well, you wanted just to do this, boom, 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 boom. And I'm not going to say, oh, that's what, it's almost like you just had to, I don't know, change your frame of mind on something, on the phrase. And that one little change, boom, you're there, you're locked in. It's kind of like, oh, that's what he was kind of going for. And, something so simple, but sometimes in the moment, maybe you're just not there. You're just not locked into what they're asking.
Yeah.
And so no matter, you'll struggle with it.
Yeah,
but,
you can't
but
get out of your own
technically,
space.
it's not difficult to do. I mean, to execute the part the way they're asking, it's not difficult, technically speaking. But that feel comes into play, and what you have, what you're trapped in that little cycle, and you keep doing the same way.
Yeah, there must become some kind of like something released in the brain that causes some kind of a stress that tenses you up or whatever it is that keeps you from.
Yeah.
Because it's similar to, whenever you try to write something new,
Yeah.
it's not easy
And
to
it
do.
sounds forced. and it's-
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds for it, but then you be in your shower or something like that, and just ideas will come to you out of nowhere and stuff like that. There's something to that, I think, scientifically, where they've done studies where, when you're kind of in one of those, you're in a moment where your mind is just kind of like free at that moment. You're doing something, hiking or taking a shower, whatever. When you're not doing anything, there's some kind of a releasers in your brain which opens you up to being more creative, rather than when you're trying to actually be creative. It shuts things down in a way.
Totally agree. I have which is why I have so many ideas on the iPhone, just because random times something would come into my head. And it's like, and I don't have a guitar with me, so I'll, maybe I'll vocalize it somewhere out running around, whatever I'm doing. But it's that moment that you're not sitting there planning to write something, yet this thing is in your head, and you know or you think it's worth something.
Yep.
Well, it's like when somebody comes up and goes, when you're playing, go, just play something funky.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you start thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like, what is fun? Instead of just like,
and then it's not funky.
Things that are groovy, just like you get to a point as a musician, I think you're not consciously thinking. It's just you're reacting to what's every impulse, every stimulus that's coming forward, and you're reacting to it.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're trying to force something in, like, is this funky? And all of a sudden it ain't funky
What
at all.
always happens
like,
with me too, because like they'll be like, play funky beat.
Yeah.
and I'll think,
funky.
and I'll be like, I can do that, but what if the one I just played? What if the one I'm about to play I just played? So it doesn't, it's like doesn't sound creative, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then,
Is that the only funky beat you know?
Yeah, we're like, like, didn't you just do that? Yeah.
We at Guitar Center again, where you're doing the funky drummer again. Oh, okay, I got it. Right. When in doubt, we just go back to paid in full.
That's true. That's true. Because then you can do anything over top of that.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Simple. Keep
All
it
right.
simple.
Everybody, podcast at tuneupandjam.com. You want to email us, and better yet, hit us up on all the social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Let us know what's happening out there, and let us know who could be featured as far as you got any artists, friends out there, or yourselves got some songs, original songs you want us to promote. So let us know.
Songs, you want to come in, you want to talk, you want to come in, whatever.
Come play a song.
Yeah, play a song,
Play a song,
shoot the
live, send a
shit.
song.
Yeah.
We played some before. We'll play some more in the future. Just let us know.
And maybe you think that tempo is more important than feel.
Yeah, let us
I
know.
like that number 32 was about feel, because Magic Johnson was number 32, and
There
that
you go.
dude just played with feel.
There you go.
Like, see, you can't get away from the sports.
Boom. We're in LA. What you gonna do?
That's how he rolls. All right.
All
Later.
right, peace out.